Welcome to the She Ventures podcast, a space to remember the sacred within and rise with it. I'm Georgina Miranda, your host, entrepreneur, adventurer, activist, and guide. Here we explore the unfiltered journey of becoming through the voices of women and allies, building lives, businesses, and movements rooted in purpose, truth, and love. This isn't just inspiration, it's wisdom. Wisdom to reclaim, to grow, to heal, and lead from within. This is for her. This is for you, wherever you may be on your journey. Welcome. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so excited to be here with all of you and to kick off a new season of our She Ventures podcast and bring new content, guests, and formats to the space to share with all of you. One of which is me having solo podcast sessions, which hasn't been the case over the years. I always have guests. But there's a lot of information that I would love to share. And also, there's a lot of questions that come through from our community. It was important to be able to introduce this. So I wanted to really start us off with purpose as a topic, because it's no surprise that being an entrepreneur is no easy feat. It is a mountain of its own. If you know anything about me, a little bit at least, is that I'm also a mountaineer. So I love climbing mountains. I choose quite hard ones. And, I also choose to do quite challenging things in my personal life. And starting businesses is one of them. And a lot of people ask me, like, how did you go from not being able to run a mile to climbing Mount Everest? Like, how did that even happen? And that was purpose. So in that specific case, right, of climbing the highest mountain on the planet, and I've been there twice, was not just because I wanted to become a mountaineer, or because I wanted to tick a box and climb Mount Everest. It was because there was a bigger purpose behind it around raising awareness and resources around gender-based violence and ending violence against women. And because 1 in 3 women will experience gender-based violence in their lifetimes. That has not changed in my 17 years of activism. And that was a driving force behind me starting to climb mountains and build a whole project and campaign around it to complete the Explorer Grand Slam, which is still in process. And I'm happy to share more about that later. But with this business, this week, I sent a love letter to our community. I'm a writer. I love writing. I really love sending letters. It was one of my favorite things to do growing up, and I miss writing people letters. And I can't really say I love sending emails, but I do love writing letters. And it was important for me to share with the community why we're still at this. Why is She Ventures still here? It's been 9 years. 9 years ago, over 200 of you gathered with me and some other amazing female founders in San Francisco, California, for our first She Ventures event, because She Ventures started as an event series. And my why for that event was to gather women together of all walks of life, all different professions, and really center us around our commonality of choosing adventure as a way of life, whatever adventure meant for us. And She Ventures is a play on words of adventure and then venture capital. And so this gathering really blew me away, because here was this room full of 200 plus amazing women. And while we had content to share and stories and things like this, the questions and the sharing from the audience, from all of you that gathered at that one event, there were just key themes that I kept witnessing amongst incredible women and that I myself was experiencing. So at the time, I had another startup that I was fundraising for. I was living in Silicon Valley. I had done the whole fundraising thing in Silicon Valley. I was a solo founder, Latina, woman of color. It was so tough. Again, that's going to be for another podcast. So many topics. And, less than 3% of women were getting funding. And this was back in 2016. And that statistic hasn't changed all that much. Some years it even drops, and it hasn't gone up so much. And so that was just one thing, but there were others. And as I wrote in this love letter to the community, why do I have She Ventures? After 9 years, I wish I could say that a company like She Ventures isn't necessary. So in this letter, I share my why. And the reality is that all of you are my why. Women are my why. I sometimes wish that I could have chosen a different mission in life, but this mission chose me. This purpose chose me. I see the power, the beauty, the impact women have and can have all over the world because I work all over the world. I also see some of the key themes that a lot of us have struggled with and are navigating through. And I want there to be a space for that. I want there to be a space to hold each other, to be vulnerable, to support each other with wisdom, with knowledge, not just from me, but from other amazing people on this planet that can also help us advance in whatever we're trying to do, whether that's within our lives and our businesses, our projects, and have the impact that we hope to have. Women are sacred. And it took me a very long time to feel confident enough to actually say this. Women are sacred. I'm sacred. I wasn't taught that growing up in any capacity. And because of what I chose to be an activist for around gender-based violence, I saw women not being treated sacred all over the world. I've met these women, and they are, and you are. And I think that this is a key critical piece of how everything changes, not only for ourselves, but on this planet, on this time that we live in. There's two things that are sacred, Earth and women. And of course, every human being, every being on this planet is sacred. But I'm going to specifically talk about women and Earth. We're both sacred. And historically, I'm going to use words that are a bit intense and strong and maybe, a little bit much for some people. But, historically, women have been raped and pillaged, and communities raped and pillaged, and the earth raped and pillaged. And there's a correlation between those two. And there's such a need and reverence for today to really honor the sacred. But it starts with us. We have to honor the sacredness in ourselves before the rest of the world can do that. We have to teach them in a way and also hold space for one another and for when we're not being honored and we're not being respected, and to collectively have a voice and collectively support each other. And so purpose, that is why She Ventures exists. That's why I continue to do this work, even when life has been hard and when we've survived a pandemic, we're self-funded, we've survived all different sorts of things you can think of, and personally and just like as a business. And we're still here because of purpose. I'm still here because of a purpose. And the world is changing at such a rapid pace, and it's hard. Change is hard. There'll be another podcast on change. The world is changing at a rapid pace. It's demanding that we also, you can use the word change. You can also think of it as grow, evolve. And I think it's even more important to be really clear about what our why is, so that we can be intentional in how we grow and how we change and how we evolve at the pace that the outside world is demanding. I get challenged on this all the time. Georgina, not everyone has a purpose. Maybe you haven't discovered it yet, and that's a beautiful adventure of its own. I love adventure. As you get to know me better and listen to our episodes, you'll hear me talk about adventuring inward. Yeah, everything is an adventure. This life is an adventure. Every breath we take, we get to continue to take, is an adventure. And we're evolving. We're never gonna, I hope that we don't, all stay the same. That's not the point. But the question is, how do we want to evolve? How do we want to change? And that has to be connected to a why. And so I think it's just something for us to consider and think about. If you don't have a solid purpose in your heart and your mind yet, ask yourself, what could or would my why be? What do I care deeply about? What am I deeply passionate about? What impact do I want to have on this earth, on this time, during this time that I have on this planet? And see how it starts to potentially give you some guidance as to how you want to navigate through not only your life, but your career and what you hope to experience and also contribute. And all things considering in the state of the world, my why is really why I wake up every day and I keep going and I do this work. I want to continue to connect and grow this community and be a resource in any way we can and a sacred space to share together, and give yourself the opportunity to maybe reflect on what your purpose might have been at different stages in your life, because I don't know where you are on your journey. There's so many people listening, and so we're all at different points in our lives, and our purpose and why we do what we do, why we are who we are, can also evolve and shift as we do. And so I think that's also beautiful to look back and see. And like I said, I feel like purpose has found me in my life. It's not something that I went out necessarily looking for when I decided to start climbing and things like that. It was an article in Glamour magazine that found me, and I found out that women in Congo were being raped by the tens of thousands and had for over 2 decades and continue to be so, unfortunately. But I had no idea. I didn't know. And it lit a fire in me, and it lit a sacred rage and sacred love. And you're going to hear me talk about those things a lot, because I am both. I am sacred rage and I am sacred love. Sacred rage comes from a sacred love for something. And when I see it like dishonored in any way or disrespected, the sacred rage develops and I want to go do something about it. And so that was the case back in 2008 when I read this article. And that was the case when I organized that first event for She Ventures in 2016. I was experiencing every single kind of discrimination you could think of in Silicon Valley. And I had also experienced so much even on the mountains as a woman climbing. I had experienced it in corporate America when I was a management consultant. I had just experienced so many things. And then I was witnessing on the other end these extremes that women, these hardships, these mountains they were climbing in other parts of the world, and even not too far when it came around gender-based violence. And I'm going to share that statistic again because it's important, and it's something that we'll dive a little bit more deeper in with She Ventures, but 1 in 3 women will experience gender-based violence. And now that I've been doing this work for so long, I am both grateful that women trust me with their stories and also just shocked every time I hear a new story from somebody I know, from somebody not on the other side of the world, from somebody I just come across that learned about my work in activism and then decides to share their story with me. And so if you've been following She Ventures for a while, you might say, like, Georgina, why are you talking about sacred things now? And I am a super spiritual person. I haven't brought that side of me to the business. I've evolved over time as well. Purpose, let's talk about that. Part of my purpose is also to be my best self so I can be of best service to others. That is part of my purpose. And so I have had a huge inner journey these last 9 years since I started this company. I'm very grateful to She Ventures. I'm very grateful to all of you because honestly, you also have kept me going when I was facing my inner mountains because you're my why. And that gave me inspiration to get up and try again and to not give up on myself and not give up on you or on other women. And again, it's purpose that sometimes can pull us out of the darkest parts of our lives or journeys, or just when we might lose our way. Purpose will help us reconnect with it and find our way. You're going to hear a lot of new things, maybe that they're not new because you can hear about them all sorts of places, but how we address things and the messages that we're sharing. And you will hear this word sacred a lot more. And I hope it sparks something in you. I hope you can just reflect and ask yourself, do I see myself as sacred? Have I ever seen myself as sacred? How could I see myself as sacred? And maybe you're like me. I could look at friends, colleagues, women I admired and be like, oh my God, she's such a goddess. Like, she's amazing. And I couldn't do that for myself. And so I started to realize, like, oh my gosh, here you are. This was, many years ago. Like I said, it's been a long inward journey, but as like, here I am, I want to walk the talk. And so I will just share that anything I share on She Ventures not only is rooted in purpose, but it's rooted in truth, in the sense that I'm walking that talk, that I've done that work myself. I'm not going to ask this community or anyone to go do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And viewing myself, my life, my contribution as sacred, it was part of that journey. And it's a key ingredient to us being able to really step forward in life with our full truth, authenticity, power that lives inside of us, that no one needs to empower us. That's part of my purpose, is to make sure that I can help whoever's listening and whoever's part of our community also reconnect and remember with that sacredness within themselves, the power within themselves, and have the tools and resources to investigate, like, at what point, if at all, if it did, there was a disconnect, right? So to reconnect back to ourselves, to our truth, to our why, and to remember that we're sacred. And so that's the starting point. And I just really encourage you, from a purpose perspective, to reflect and sit back on that. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business leader, or anything else, like, I think it's so powerful to share your purpose with others, because that's also how you can bring them along the journey of whatever you're trying to build, create, grow, to align, to collaborate on this purpose. Maybe there's a shared purpose that you all have. And that's how people can come together and grow together. You can come up with the most amazing, again, entrepreneur advice here. Like, if you're coming up with fresh content, or like newsletters, or whatever you're trying to do, be sure you're always sharing your purpose with people. And you also never know what can that attract to in terms of partnerships and collaborations, but also who it might touch and who it might spark something within them and be life-changing. And so I'm just so grateful to all of you. If you don't get our newsletter, I hope you'll sign up for that, and you'll be getting more information, tools, resources, no spammy newsletters. If, as you're listening, there's anything that you would like to connect on, learn more about, drop it in the comments. I want to hear, and I would love to create episodes that are just addressing things that you all care about and want to know more of. So, and that resonate with you, and that will help you in your journey wherever you are. That's like why we're here. So thank you so much. These will be short and sweet episodes, and I can't wait to introduce all the amazing guests we have planned for this season. Remember, you're sacred. Remember, the earth is sacred. Remember that we're not separate from the earth. We're all interconnected with one another, with the earth, with everything around us. And if we can live with that awareness, it's such a different, beautiful experience. And to just reconnect with parts of ourselves that are so far beyond maybe what we can tap into, or that we do tap into in our busy lives on a daily basis. And so thank you so much. And I look forward to the next episode. Thank you for being here. If something sparked inside, please leave a review or share this with someone you love. And if you want more, explore our coaching and partnerships at sheventures.co. And most importantly, keep listening to that sacred yes inside. Until next time.